education, parents and teachers, what are your 3 buckets of concerns as we get through the end of the school year chaos? Welcome to the Special Education Inner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Witcher, and the end of the school year is just buzzing with chaos everywhere inside of special education. And I just want you to take a few minutes here with me and let's get your thoughts organized. Let's make sure that we don't hit the last day of school and be like, oh, I forgot to address this. And now that it's summer, it's super hard to get this taken care of. If you are a parent, teacher, admin, or therapist, and you sit at the IEP table, you are in the right place. In case you haven't heard of the Master IEP Coach mentorship before, go check out masteriepcoach.com. You could become a Master IEP Coach this summer. Now, some people become a Master IEP Coach for themselves. They're like, I just want to be the best that I can be at the IEP table. And some become a Master IEP Coach because they want to be the best at their IEP table and they want to help others. So they choose to start to run a business as a Master IEP Coach. Okay, the reason I share that with you right now is because I'm going to go through some of the things that I have been working with behind the scenes with those who are inside of the Master IEP Coach mentorship. Again, these are parents, teachers, admins, and therapists just like you that are working to be the best at the IEP table for themselves or to help others. And I'm going to go through a couple of situations that I've been coaching people through in the mentorship. And maybe one of these is your situations. Maybe. So let's just see. The first one is that I have a former teacher who is a Master IEP Coach. She's been in the mentorship. She's been in the mentorship for a while. She's actually in the second step of her Master IEP Coach journey. So you do the mentorship, and then there's a second step in that. So she's working this second step, and she's all about being that resource for parents in the fall, which means that her spring is very, very busy right now. It's figuring out how to connect and make sure that people know that she exists in her community so they know where to go to get help, right? So parents are like not feeling this, there's nobody out there for me. No, Master IEP coaches are right, most likely not too far from you in your community. So I've been coaching her through how to set up her tables at, local events in her community. So like a local autism fundraising walk, right? You guys know all the tables that are there and you guys go meet all the providers and see what's happening. So we have Master IEP coaches and they don't work for me. When you become a Master IEP coach, you are 100% on your own, as in it's your own business. You're doing your thing. I'm just coaching you through how to make it happen because I've been doing this for over 2 decades. So I pour everything I've got into helping you get going. So she is struggling with getting her name out in the community. So she's decided that one of the things that she would love to do is meet people in real person, connect with families, see what's going on in the community, hear directly from the parents, and really make that personal connection. Because let's just face it, right? If you're a parent, it feels lonely a lot of times, right? Or it feels quite overwhelming of the negativity that's out there about IEPs and what's happening. And there's so much that just brings down your hope that things are going to turn out good. They're going to turn out good. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for this Master IEP Coach during this busy end of the school year time as parents are trying to hustle around and find resources for this year and for next year, been helping her do that. So if you have ever thought, I want to become a Master IEP Coach and I want to help other parents, but I don't know how to get my name out there, this is just one way that Master IEP coaches get their names out there. And you don't have to worry about like, well, what do I put on my table? And what do I actually say to them? And how do I actually set this up? And how do I teach you all of that. Okay. Inside the mentorship. Promise. Okay. Now, inside the Master IEP Coach mentorship, I also have a mom who has a child in elementary school. And inside of her district, there are several different elementary schools. And she had an IEP meeting at the elementary school where her daughter attends. And in the meantime, she moved to another area within her district and needed to start her daughter at that school. And the meeting wasn't finished at the first school. And the first school was actually recommending a placement change, which is also within the district. So now there's communication between the first school and the school that the child just started at, and where is placement going to be, and how is this all going to work, and what does the data say, and who started the meeting, right? The new school, are they the ones who finished the meeting, but now she's in another school? Do you see? Lots of things to navigate, lots of things to figure out of who is responsible for what, how do we pick up where we left off, how do we see if perhaps a placement change to a third school within the district, perhaps that's not the best next step, because there may be opportunities at this new school that were not at the old school, just a lot of things. So if you're in the middle of placement chaos, you're not alone. You're not alone. Okay. So navigating these things, everybody thinks that there's going to be this like one right answer. There's this, it happens this way. This is what the law says, or this is what the district says, or this is how it's done. I want you to always remember there is more than one way to provide FAPE, a free and appropriate public education. And all situations are unique. So how you navigate something is really unique to what you want your desired outcome to be. And that's where we're going to get to these 3 buckets of chaos. Okay, we're going to talk about some 3 buckets of chaos and kind of containing them, and what are you going to get done? All right. So if you are navigating placement, I want you to know you're not alone, and I want you to start making a list of all of the things that have you worried about placement. That's from a parent perspective. Teachers, you go through things when it comes to placement too. Sometimes it's placement for yourself, like where are you going to end up next year in the district? Sometimes it's placement for your students of where are they going to go next year if it's not to stay with you, or maybe you're deciding, are you recommending they stay in your classroom another year? Lots of placement decisions. And as much as you can forward think into next year, really disconnecting from some of the things that happened this year. You've got a lot of emotions. Parents and teachers you guys have a lot of emotions, right? Of what has happened this school year. And sometimes you're making decisions for next year based on more emotional things than maybe the data. Okay, so we have to look at the data specifically. We have to see what's possible for next year and make some really great decisions. Okay, so that's elementary school. Let's move on to a middle school. A middle school situation where I am coaching a mom who joined the Master IEP Coach Mentorship for herself, because she's got a middle schooler, like an up and rising into middle school. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are not in the current elementary school IEP that need to be addressed for the middle school IEP. Things like, how are we going to have, access to lockers? How are we going to make sure that all the teachers on the middle school team are trained, because that team is bigger than the elementary school. And we need to make sure that it's not just one teacher who's in charge of the IEP, because there's going to be multiple teachers that are taking responsibility for the learning outcomes for this child. So how are we going to make sure there's teacher training? That's in the supports for school personnel area inside of the IEP. We got to get that built up. We got to really bulk that up with some teacher training. And then the other piece is safety. Safety is going to be a huge concern, and we need to make sure there's a safety plan in place for this child as they go from elementary to middle school. That's going to include some visits to the middle school this spring. It's going to include some visits to the middle school over the summer while the school is empty. And it's going to include some additional support during the first few days of school, maybe even the first few weeks of school, as we take some data and make sure that the child is safe in that school and can navigate independently the way that we do expect the child to be able to, but we're going to need some additional supports to get there. So these are not forever supports that we're putting in place. These are temporary supports as the child goes into a different school building. So if you are navigating that, again, you are not alone. There are creative solutions that you can do to make sure this transition from one building to another, especially elementary to middle school or middle school to high school, that's a big deal. There's another transition that's happening. I'm working with a family who has a child who is going from high school to community college. They did not take their diploma at the end of senior year. The child is going to continue into the transition program, 18 to 22. There's also going to be some coordination with the community college. I've actually had this conversation with a couple of parents and just providers who are inside of the Master IEP Coach Mentorship, of talking about how do we coordinate the community college and their disability office, and how do we coordinate that with what is offered at the school and what is provided under FAPE, and how do we make this connection so the transition, when it is time to come out of the school system and being underneath IDEA law and going into community college and going underneath all of those new rules and regulations, and how is that going to work, and what does the disability office really provide at college, that conversation is happening. So if you are in that place, which I know can feel super scary, just know, again, you are not alone. There are resources, there are creative solutions, and there is no one right way to do this. Like, there's no like Google it up and get the right answer. This is exactly how it works, because things are flexible. I know everybody thinks that special education is like, it's so black and white, and either you get it or you don't. Actually, special education is really flexible. And that's where a lot of the struggle comes in, is because we have a lot of options on how to do things. And yes, some people get stuck in old habits and get stuck in bad habits and get stuck in, well, this is just how things are done here. But that's not necessarily the big picture of what is possible. So I want to encourage you, and I this is what I would do for my personal clients that I've worked with for years, and this is what I do inside of Master IEP Coach Mentorship, is I want you to write down all the things that are swirling. I got to get all these things done before the end of the school year. I want you to write them down. I can pretty much predict that all of those things fall into about 3 different buckets. I've been doing this long enough that I know it's typically 3 different things. So you're going to have something like, okay, I'm worried about safety. I'm worried about communication. Now, this is from a parent's perspective, right? And I'm worried about teacher training. Like, those are 3 big things. There's a lot of things. So I'm worried about eloping. I'm worried about, the child crying. I'm worried, unexpectedly not being able to communicate because they're scared, not being able to open up their locker because, and like, there's this list and list and list, like for this mom who's navigating the middle school transition here, all these lists, and it goes on and on and on. And when she brain dumped out all of the things, I was like, well, we really have like 3 things. You're worried about accessing the building, you're worried about safety, and you're worried about the teachers being trained. And if we could get those 3 things nailed down before the end of the school year, how would you feel about the start of the next year? We know it's not going to be perfect. How would you feel about it? Would you feel good that you could get started because you would know that your child was accessing their school? They could get to everything they need to get to. They were safe while doing it, and the teachers were trained to work with your child. She's like, yeah, I can start there. I have so many other concerns, but I can start there. I'm like, awesome. Let's see what we can do this year to make sure that we wrap this up so you are set up for next year. So I want you to go ahead and brain dump. Give yourself permission to just, put it all out there. And for teachers, it's the same for you. It's the same thing. So if you're talking about, whether an individual student is kind of weighing on your mind and you're like, I'm worried about all these things for this child for next year, how do you streamline that process? If it's your caseload overall, you could be, okay, what are all the things that I'm worried about for my caseload overall? What do I have to do to wrap up this year as a teacher? And sometimes you're making other decisions too, right? For yourself of, are you going to be in the classroom next year? Are you going to be in the same classroom next year? What's going on? You have a lot of things at the end of the year that bring up a lot of emotions in your own kind of teacher perspective. So brain dump all those out and then rise above and look down at all of those things and say, can I fit these into 3 categories? Are there 3 things that if I really kind of package these up, I would say, okay, if I can do this, this, and this, I'm good. I'm good for the end of the school year. Again, it's not perfect. We're just looking to make progress so we have a solid foundation for moving forward in the fall. Now, I would love to work with you inside of the Master IEP Coach Mentorship. Maybe one of these things you're like, well, that's kind of my situation, but I really wish that we could talk about because my situation is, and you want to fill in, what's going on. You want to tell me what's going on, and you want some help navigating those next steps. You want some help figuring out, okay, when you brain dump all the things, what are those 3 buckets? What do you need to get done before the end of the school year? How do I take this chaos and turn it into a calm feeling of, I got this going into next year? That's exactly what you can do inside of the Master IEP Coach Mentorship. When you enroll, I will give you a complete online library that has a ton of different strategies that, quite honestly, you may not have time to go through right now. You might be like, are you kidding me? I do not have time to sit in front of the screen and learn these things, Catherine. Okay, all right, I hear you. Because when you're inside of the mentorship, you actually get direct access to me where you can text and voice message me and say, hey, this is why I signed up. This is what's going on. Maybe you want to start a business. You're like, I want to start a business and I want to make this happen and I'm going to take the summer to do it and I want to be prepared for the fall to help parents. Or maybe you're a teacher who's like, you know what? I don't have enough confidence in IEP meetings and everything felt like a hot mess and I really want to do better in my role at IEP meetings. And that's why you're becoming a master IEP coach. Or maybe you're a parent and you're like, I'm just not doing this by myself anymore. And I want strategies to make sure that I'm doing what's right for my child. And I don't want to Google at 3 a.m. And I don't want to be in the Facebook groups that are not necessarily giving the best advice. And they don't understand me and my family and my child's needs. And I want somebody that I can have this confidential conversation with to talk about my child. Okay. All of those things, we can have all of those conversations inside the Master IEP Coach Mentorship. You sign up, you get all my resources, you send me a message, and you say, Catherine, this is who I am, this is what I need, and we get right to it. You can absolutely get things done now before the end of the school year. Maybe you're listening to this over the summer and you're like, shoot, I missed this. I missed it. Like the last day of school already happened. It's okay. We can do things over the summer and get you prepped for the fall. And if you happen to be scrolling back, like it's the fall already when you're watching this, or you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts and you're like, what do I do? Don't worry. You can jump right in. Becoming a Master IEP Coach is all about helping you become the idea bringer, solution finder, and team builder at the IEP table. It's all about you learning the strategies, like being able to brain dump all of the little things that are going on and rising up and saying, what are the top 3 things? What if I took care of these 3 things, all of these other little things would kind of fall into place with those. And now I have priorities and now I can get back to living my life because IEPs are not eating up all of my energy and my brain space. All right, everyone, I cannot wait to hear what are your 3 priorities. You know, you can send me a message on Instagram. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead, just leave a comment on here. I would love to talk to you about what are your top 3 priorities. And if you're ready for some individualized help and you're ready to become that leader at the IEP table because you're just tired of the chaos and the confusion that happens, being overwhelmed, and you want this to be just so much more simple for you, I can't wait to see you inside of the Master IEP Coach Mentorship. All right, everyone, I'll see you next time.